perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched with so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red flag. Uh-oh. The bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. I'll make up for it now. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
And court is back in session here on If You Don't Like That. Ryan and Sacktown with you. Jerry Reynolds, or as you guys are naming it, a Chicken and Dumpling Tuesday? We're now doing Chicken and Dumpling Tuesdays. I'm going to ask Jerry if he has any problem renaming our weekly segment to Chicken and Dumplings. Happy you're here. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up. Please like the show. Would really, really appreciate that. Yes, that was the one and only Carl Lewis. I've got a little bit of a different take on this whole thing. And first off, yes, last night was a little bit different. If you didn't hear, this was the national anthem at the Home Run Derby.
With broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.
Yeah, the players are kind of looking around like, is this really going on? That was Ingrid Andress, country singer. But I want to give her some respect. She's actually come out and said that she has a problem with alcohol. She's going to be entering rehab. So good for her. And you know what? Anybody that gets their butts up there to sing the national anthem, I can't imagine that's the easiest thing in the world to do, let alone on your own. But then you do it in front of a full stadium. I got respect for that. I mean, there was Roseanne Barr in San Diego. You guys remember that one? Ooh, she got booed about halfway through. But yes, Ingrid Address is going to be entering treatment. So good for her, and way to own it. I got nothing but respect for that. But as you know, Dog Days of Summer, Jerry Reynolds going to be joining us here in a little bit. Can't wait to have him on the show. Get your questions in the chat for him. Definitely want to get to some of those. If there's any subject matter that you want to hit, JR, yes, indeed. What's up, y'all? Checking in. Bane, howdy. I like the word howdy. It's a good greeting. Holy moly, Jim Bob Boley.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Boley.
Yes, indeed. I love how everybody checks in with each other in the chat. Very good stuff. Kings get their first Summer League victory last night over the Utah Jazz. Drew Timme still balling out for the Kings. Good for him. Maybe it earns him a two-way, or at least some more time with the Stockton Kings. Probably not a two-way. The Kings got 3 of those tied up right now. That's the max that you can have on the roster. Still, turnovers an issue for Keon Ellis. You saw a little bit of life, though, from Colby Jones last night, which is good. I'd love to get Jerry's take. We kind of talked about it last night. on If You Don't Like That. And by the way, Grant and I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock. Make sure you are here. We're going to do an open forum show, much like we did last night. Adam, do you think Jerry's even going to know those people? Like, what if Jerry does know his wrestling? I know Adam's going to be like, all right, I got to get in here. Let me ask a question. Are you a mommy or are you a Liv fan? Are you a senor champion or whatever? What are you, Jerry? Yeah, no, definitely. No hat. I know, Dave. I'm sure Jerry's going to roll in here wearing a hat. It's a little too warm for a hat. When we get in between like 90 and 100, that is when we never know where to put, or we start to have the arguments about the AC. The wife, we get some shade on the house, and if there's a breeze, she wants to leave the windows open. I want the AC. I've got to have a control room or a temperature that's at least down at like 72, 71, but the rest of the family gets a little bit cold. So that's what we're dealing with. Thus, the no hat. Alberto, what's up, dude? Welcome into the party. Happy Tuesday, 49ers fans. How you feeling? Brandon Ayuk requests a trade per some reports. Where does he line up in terms of receiver pay? Is he one of those guys that should be towards the top of the mountain? I mean, when you talk about the top of the mountain, it's Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year. Then you go A.J. Brown, Amon St. Brown. I don't know if Ayuk's there. Remember, Debo, or Dabo, whatever you want to say, Debo, wanted to request a trade too last year. Didn't work out. In fact, the kicker requested a trade a couple of years ago. Didn't work out. So Niners, you don't have enough money to sign everybody, but what are you thinking? How you feel about that? I know that those specialists are really important, but the Niners got to start thinking about the problem that many teams have faced, and it's paying a quarterback. Look at the New York Giants in the situation. Sorry, Napes, hate to bring it up, but look at the situation that the Giants are in with Daniel Jones. And they really didn't have a choice when it came to re-signing him, and it came at the expense of Saquon Barkley, who they thought that, hey, we might be able to franchise him. He'll work with us. Nope. Straight to Philly. Philly pays him a bag. But yeah, please, yes, smash the like button, retweet, like the show if it's your first time here on the King's Court. We have a lot of fun usually on these shows. We talk Kings, we talk cards, we talk whatever is topical in sports. The ESPN list of the 100 best athletes of the 2000s and beyond has continued to get updated. They're up to, I believe, 50 or 49. We'll check in with that in a little bit. Derek Jeter in the 50s. And by the way, can we give Jeter a big round of applause for checking Colin Cowherd? This guy, Colin Cowherd, I get it, dude. You are a made man in radio. You have a national show. You have a simulcast. I'm here doing it on YouTube, X, and some other platforms. But my man, at what point do you quit blaming your producers? If you didn't see yesterday, Cowherd talking to Derek Jeter on the lead up to the home run derby, and Cowherd's trying to talk to Derek about the different eras he played through. And he said, well, you played through the Nolan era, period, Derek. And he's like, whoa. Stop, slow down. No, I did not play with Nolan Ryan. And yes, so he checked him. It needed to be done. Cowherd had made a horrendous mistake earlier in the year for the football season. Some of you guys know about that. Brought up a quarterback that was deceased in Dwayne Haskins. Yes, deceased. So Cowherd, just one of those guys, probably time to go away, kind of like Skip Bayless. Did you guys hear about that? FS1. He's going to be doing some of his last shows this summer on Undisputed. It seems like that show, they've tried to revive it just a few too many times. I think it's on life support and probably done. Yeah. Are you guys really doing chicken and dumplings for Jerry? Yeah. Okay. Gammon, what's up, Gammon? How you doing today, man? He says he deserves $30 million a year flat. That would make him the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. Interesting. The Niners can't pay everybody. They just extended McCaffrey. A lot of teams, again, in that position. I go back to the Giants example with Daniel Brown. and then they turn to Tommy Cutlets, and his agent gets let loose on America. And the rest is history. And now back to Daniel Jones. Undisputed. Thank you. I don't even care about the show. I don't watch the show. I just saw that Skip was taking a sidestep and getting off of it, which I don't know. You just at some point open the microphone up for shock value. That's what Skip Bayless is. And at some point, you got to get tired of bagging on the Cowboys, he likes the Cowboys, excuse me, getting on LeBron's case. Bronny James, who continues to struggle. I don't want to make this a Bronny James show. I feel terrible for that kid. We said this going into the draft that he was going to have a target on his back, and it's questionable whether he should even be playing in Summer League right now, getting minutes in Summer League. Yet he signed a 4-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. Be glad, very glad, that he is not a part of your Sacramento Kings. Yeah, the list does. So I read the fine print on the list, C-Dog, and it's from the 2000s on. So anything that the athletes did prior to 2000 does not count. So that's probably why somebody like Jeter ends up in the 50s. Really? The 50s? Come on. It's the fine print that always gets you. And that's why those lists, it's literally, it's shock value. It is to stimulate conversation. Yes, Jaylen Brown said, yeah, maybe he's not an NBA pro. Yeah. So Bane, for Undisputed, I'm not sure the new format worked. Okay. Lil Wayne on a sports panel. No offense. Respect to Lil Wayne and his music game. But yeah, to me, you're trying to bring new eyes to the product, bring in another segment of entertainment in, and it works for some things, definitely not sports. I mean, honestly, the things that work best for sports is just the basics. Think about Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser. It's one of Jerry's favorite shows, PTI. Speaking of chicken and dumplings, but yeah, those shows, it works. Even Around the Horn, I'm a little surprised that one is still around. Also, breaking from The Athletic, we have our first set, check this out, of NBA power rankings. I call them the way too early NBA power rankings. Who do you guys think is at the top of the list? Probably not a big surprise, but they've put them into tiers. So here's the tiers. You've got tier 1, the contenders, tier 2, the brink of contention, tier 3, playoff teams, and then play-in teams or better. Are they just filling out play-in criteria? And then the Cooper flag positioning. So where do you think the Kings fall into that? Again, I'll tell you, they're in the first 4 categories. The first is contenders, brink of contention, playoff teams, and then play-in tournament teams or better. Where do you think the Kings are at? Yeah, it's a good point here. Skip Billy? What? Are you serious? Really, Alberto? You think it's better with him in it? Interesting. I don't know. Can you really call him a journalist? I don't know. That's tough. I don't know enough about him, but I know that he's had some pretty bad moments. What makes Shohei Ohtani way better than McDavid? Good point. McDavid has done a lot. Actually, he's done everything since the year 2000. Peter, what's up, my man? He's saying playoff teams. There's one vote for playoff teams. Kings ranked in probably. Vote for that. You guys don't think the Kings are a contender? What's going on here? Playoff team. Let's see. Did anyone else know the MLB All-Star festivities are this week? I didn't. They sneak up on you, Alberto. They were playing baseball up until Sunday. Midday Sunday, there were games still going on. Baseball is a different animal because the season's so long and you play every day for the most part. You only get one day off, so they don't have that big gap getting people in and flying across the country because not everybody goes. So they throw the guys on the private jets, get them to Texas and Arlington for the All-Star game tonight, which is going to be going on. Are you guys going to watch it? What are you watching for? Should be interesting. Let's see. Playoff teams, we got to that. Well-researched fact. LeBron's sons are better at basketball compared to Jordan's sons. Yeah. Isn't it kind of too early to tell, Gammon? Isn't it? I guess the media coverage and the AAU coverage wasn't what it is today, back when Jordan's kids were playing. Now, granted, I don't know how long Jordan's kids played for, but I guess you could make that argument. I wouldn't say that it's a well-known or well-researched fact, but it's definitely an argument to make. We'll see. I mean, it's still early for Bronny. You got to let this kid develop. Look at a guy like Colby Jones, right? Second-round pick. Should have been. Remember, he was notched as a first-round pick. The Kings had him in the first round in the last draft, and then they make the trade back, Rashawn Holmes, to Dallas, which frees up some room, frees up $21 million basically for the Kings. And then they get Colby late and were able to use one of the exceptions on his contract that didn't go against the cap. But Colby is still developing. In fact, I was talking to a couple of people that are in Vegas right now and asking what's going on behind the scenes. What are you seeing with Doug and some of the guys that could be expected to possibly get minutes for the Kings this offseason? When I was talking about Colby, three things were brought up: defense, ball handling, three-point shooting. We saw the ball handling as a little bit of a liability last season, especially the last game that he got significant run in. He got targeted pretty well in his first couple minutes on the court. Defense, he's just not a strong guy. He's getting there. You got to learn, when you're not a strong, powerful guy, you got to learn positioning and you got to get body technique. It becomes getting lower than the other players. So those are all things that come with time. But Colby, still a project, still going to spend a ton of time in Stockton this season, although some people have him notched as possibly having a similar path to Keon Ellis. I don't know that you can compare the two because Keon was undrafted, but yeah, it is an interesting conversation all around when we start comparing players. Alberto, yes, absolutely, Rhino. He has polarizing takes that spark the conversation. Couldn't you say that they're lazy takes? I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but isn't it more of inflammatory takes? I mean, just saying something so outrageous that you have to react. And I get that if you react, then you're getting what you want. That's exactly it, an interaction. But I don't know. Fair enough. You watch more of them than I do. Gammon, MJ's kids couldn't even stay in college. Bronny James only played 1 year in college. I guess Drew's supposed to be much better. We'll see as time goes along. All right. Well, you know what Tuesdays are for, and they are for our main man, the one and only Mr. Jerry Reynolds, in the house with us today. Jerry, how's it going today?
Pretty good, Ryan. Just thought I'd better get on early here. I don't want to miss anything. I know, you got things going pretty good. And yeah, I like that picture of me there as a little younger.
Look at that good-looking man on the sidelines. What?
Not near young enough, but anyway, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
So how are the dog days of summer treating you, Jerry? What have you been up to?
Well, they are dog days. I mean,
yes.
Boy, this has been a rough summer, just weather-wise. I mean, basically just makes me get up a little earlier and get my coffee and then get my walks and stuff in earlier. That's really about it. And so that's pretty much it. I don't try to do very much because I don't want to do much.
Well, you've done a lot and a lot of traveling in your previous years, so you're just making up for the time not at home.
Yeah, that's my stance. That's my stance. I'm like my dad, his late years in French Lick, which is in Orange County, Indiana, and he always said, "By God, boy, if it ain't in Orange County, I don't need it." And so he never really left there. And that's about the way I'm getting about, If it ain't in Placer County, I don't need it.
Fair enough. Speaking of French Lick, Jerry, this is a question that I've always wanted to ask you. And all of our time together, it's never come up. But take me back to French Lick. What was it about basketball that made you fall in love with the game?
Well, I fell in love, of course, being Indiana, it's pretty hard not to in a way. But when I
Yeah.
was, I think, 6 years old, my dad took me to a high school basketball game. I had an uncle named Richard Morgan that was the star of the French Lick Red Devils. And that was before this two little towns consolidated and made Springs Valley High School, which is where I actually went to school, and Larry Bird as well.
Mhm.
Anyways, I always remember just as a little kid, just seeing, the pageantry of the whole thing, the guys with uniforms and, the packed gym and the cheerleaders. And I thought, wow, boy, someday if I could just play for the Red Devils, which didn't happen because they were, my 7th grade year, I think they consolidated. But anyway, so that's where it started, and I'm like a lot of guys. I played a lot of sports, and probably my first love almost was baseball. But
Interesting.
by the time I got to in the 7th, 8th grade, basketball is so big, and the attention you got for being good in basketball was a lot different than being good in baseball in Indiana, because the weather and all, you played your games 10, 12 games, and and that was about all you could get in, and played in front of your parents maybe,
Right.
as opposed to even a little high school. We played in front of 2,500 3,000 people about every night, every game.
Yeah, and you played tennis too. You did track and field, right? You
Track and field and cross country, baseball. I didn't play tennis in high school. We didn't have tennis.
Okay.
I just started playing really after I got out of college. But so I was kind of. I know I always kid Larry about it. I always have. I had the most varsity letters. I think it still stands as
Oh, wow.
12 varsity letters, which I think he only had 6 or 7. So I said, well, you didn't get much done.
I love it. Jerry joined us here on the King's Court. Jerry, everybody now at the start of the show, before you come on, they call it Chicken and Biscuits Tuesday. Chicken and dumplings.
Chicken
Tuesday.
and dumplings.
Excuse
yes.
me.
And me and Mrs. Reynolds went to Cracker Barrel yesterday evening, and I did have my chicken and dumplings. It was on Monday. But it's really not the best thing for my diabetes, but boy, oh boy, it's almost worth the risk now and then, so I have to kind of pick my spots. But chicken and dumplings, I mean, they're almost as good as my mama used to make.
That's what you said.
Now she can make some chicken and dumplings.
Oh, I bet. I bet the boys and Larry and everybody came around for those.
Well, they were too young at that time, but I mean, because he was 13 years younger than me. I mean, I got to know kind of Larry because of my youngest brother, Randy, who was basically Larry's age. So, and then he had a couple of older brothers that were a little closer to me. So it's big, big families, and, so that's small town. Even if you didn't want to know somebody, you had to.
You had to. That's the cool thing about small towns indeed. Jerry, I got to ask you, because you played multiple sports and you've scouted athletes pretty much your entire career. How have you seen athletes change versus back then, where you saw people playing multiple sports, to now where you specialize in one sport?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's the biggest change, to where, a kid in high school that's a good athlete was expected to play a lot of sports, maybe at least a couple, if not 3, you just, play all sports. And I really think, the specialization is a mistake for the most part. I think, I mean, it works for some kids, but a lot of kids get burnt out by it. And whether they're just playing one sport, and, where you, as a kid, let them have fun if they want to play a lot of things. A lot of the all-time greats, played a lot of sports and really didn't really dedicate themselves till later. I mean, Tim Duncan was focused on swimming until about his senior year in high school.
It's a big boy in the pool.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, but I think that's a big difference, and with the AAUs and all the travel, and when in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even there were limits on how many games high schools could play, and
Mm.
How much you could even have camps in the summertime. I think there's a limit that you couldn't go to more than one camp for a couple of weeks in the summer and still be eligible.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's really very different. And I like I say, I'm not sure that it's worked out in the long run when you compare, Europe, how they do it. I mean, I would say
Correct.
Europe prepares their players a lot like, just as I recall growing up in Indiana, where every grade you had good coaches in the sixth grade and the seventh grade. I mean, and they all were under the head coach, and you learned the fundamentals. It was always practice and fundamentals and different things like that, as opposed to just playing random games all the time. And I think European players, and we're seeing the results of that. I think so many young Euros, they're just a little better prepared skill wise.
Yeah, it's a great point because I remember times even when I was playing, you didn't touch the basketball until usually the second hour of practice, especially early on in the season. And there was such a big, focus on the fundamentals, which are important. I mean, the little things, Jerry, triple threats, cutting back door, pivoting, etc. And
Yeah.
you make a great point. You do see a difference with the Europeans, and maybe something to watch for in the Olympics as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we've probably got the most talent, but I mean, there's some good teams that could beat the Americans, and I think with the ability to play a zone defense completely, a true zone in the Olympics, that does kind of take away some of the individual one-on-one ability differences. So it will be interesting. But I was going to say, I think that's probably the difference in the Euros, that they really are trained more in the 5-man game as opposed to, a 2-man game and ISO and things of that nature. So it's a little different.
Much different indeed. Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Tuesdays. Put your questions in the chat if you have any. Grant and I talked a little bit about this last night, Jerry. The Brandon Ingram market, Pelicans have come out and said that, or their sources saying that they're not willing to pay him a max number, and nobody seems to really want to trade for him and give him that extension. What do you see with Brandon Ingram in the market now that DeMar DeRozan is signed in Sacramento?
Yeah, I don't think he's really got a particularly strong market. I mean, I think there's obviously teams like he's a very, very good player. But is he a $40, $50 million player, a $200 million commitment to a player? Quite honestly, is he an all-star?
Yep.
I mean, it's one thing to do, give max deals to Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or guys of that nature, because they've been there and done it, and they're available. I mean, and that, I think that's the thing that scares a lot of teams off with Brandon Ingram, is just his availability. He's averaged just a little over 50 plus games a year for the last 3 or 4 years.
Great point.
And so, I mean, I like Brandon Ingram's talent. I think he's got all-star potential, but I mean, give me DeMar DeRozan any day right now. I mean, will Brandon Ingram be a better player in 5 years? Yeah, he may be, but you can't. Kings need to get somebody better right now, and
Exactly.
And that's what they did.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The other thing about New Orleans is they're trying to play a little bit more of a physical brand, and Brandon Ingram can be a good complementary piece because he's not super physical, but he's extremely skilled. And it just looks like with Zion, Herb Jones, etc., they are trying to go a little bit of a different direction. He's kind of a niche player in this league at this point because you can't really put him down low to guard anybody, Jerry.
No, I mean he's a guy. He's a scorer, offensive player. I mean he's not a terrible defender, but I mean the way I look at it for New Orleans, I mean everybody can have their different opinions, but I really don't think he's more than their fourth best player.
Great
And
point.
so when you really look at it, obviously Zion's a guy that they and he hadn't been particularly durable except till this year, but he's a much more talented guy. He's unguardable at his best. And then C.J. McCollum and Trey Murphy, I think, are all what I would consider, and I think most teams in the league would agree, if you could have your pick of any of those four guys right now forget the salaries, just say you can add this guy to your roster. I think any of those three guys would be taken ahead of him. And
Wow.
so that kind of explains it to me, and I'm pretty sure New Orleans is saying, if he's basically our third or fourth, and probably is fourth, how can we afford to pay the fourth best guy $40-50 million a year?
Exactly right. And the new CBA, you hear GMs and VPs talking about it all the time, and teams are not wanting to be in that second apron. It's really restricting what you can do with your star power if you're bringing other guys in as free agents. So here's an audio clip from Monty McNair just a couple days ago, Jerry, talking about the makeup of the team right now and possibly rolling into training camp with them.
That this is probably the core of the group that we'll go into training camp with. But yeah, potentially one or two more roster spots. I think we're going to take our time a little bit and see there. Probably be more wing forward, big.
So with that in mind, the name that's been shopped around for the last basically year and a half is Kevin Huerter. Assuming the Kings roll into training camp as the roster sits right now, what do you think Mike Brown does with Kevin Huerter?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would kind of like see Kevin really develop into an off the bench player, where he could play some backup three in times when you go small ball, as well as the two guard. I think he could be very valuable there, and then really give your bench a lot of punch with him. And if Monk is still coming off the bench, I kind of like the idea of Ellis still starting, because he fits so well with De'Aaron, because he's an outstanding defender, and he and De'Aaron together really do create some problems, I thought, at the end of the year. And then as you need more offense, you certainly with Monk, but like I say, Huerter could play behind DeRozan a little bit as a small forward. It's going to be a small team, but then it's going to be a team that's going to be hard to match up with due to their ability to score the ball. And so it's a kind of a catch-22. You're going to get hurt size-wise, but then big teams are going to get hurt because they're going to have a tough time guarding you.
No doubt you can get by him a little easier than last year. There's no doubt about that. I feel like Kevin played some of his best basketball last year, actually off the bench. What is that transition for somebody that's a starter, then getting transitioned to the bench role? What does that look like? Does it let the pressure out a little bit, or does it ramp it up a little bit more to perform?
Well, it depends on the individual. I think a lot of guys, it would, they all can adjust because they're being paid a lot of money to play basketball, whether you start or come off the bench. But I mean, a lot of guys that are taken out of the starting rotation, it bothers them, much like a Malik Monk would prefer to start as to come off the bench, even though he's terrific at it. So, there's a little of that, but the main thing, as long as they're pros, they should be able to adjust. And I'll say this for Kevin, he came off the bench in Atlanta, and on a team that went to the Eastern Finals.
That's right.
So it's I think most players, except the real superstars, at some point in their career have to make adjustments. Now, in Kevin's case, he really should have 5 or 6 of his best years ahead, and whether that as a starter or really a key guy off the bench, time will tell. But it shouldn't make any difference. I mean, his job is to be valuable to the team and improve his value in the league. I mean, I always say
Certainly.
that's what sometimes players need to be reminded of the way the league is. You're playing for the Kings, but you're also playing for the league in case, for that next contract or whatever. So it's a business, and works. It always works for productive, good players. Always works.
Spot on, and that works out for both parties too, your team as well, because it increases your trade value if you do end up playing better, getting out of town at the trade deadline. Because Kevin Huerter already has suitors. That's no secret. A lot of teams like him. Chicago did. So be interesting to see what he can do. Gammon has another question about expansion in the NBA. Adam Silver has said once they got this TV rights deal done, expansion would be next on the list. Jerry, does Seattle deserve to have the Sonics back? And what is the best and most fair way for that to happen?
Well, I do think the Sonics, Seattle deserves a team. And hopefully, of course, they'll add two when they add teams. And my guess is it'll be Seattle and Las Vegas.
Right.
And so it's just a case, there'll be expansion teams. So, various ways of making that happen. In the past, current teams could protect 8 players, and then the expansion teams, in effect, could draft based on the available players, but I think with the current league with 30 teams, there would be, there'd be some guys that put up in expansion that would be good players, just like the years when Kings were good back in the early 2000s. And Gerald Wallace was a young guy that really Kings wanted to keep, liked him, knew he's going to be good. But, you had to protect your main guys. Yep. And, of course, he went to Charlotte in expansion and he became an all-star for 1 year at least, but he was very good. So, anyway, that's I think it'll be fair, because the expansion teams, when they come in, and they're going to have to pay a ton of money
oh boy,
to get in the league. So, and that's one of those things where all the owners are going to be in favor of expansion because they get it divvied up. The 30 teams get basically a percentage of how much money the two teams have to put into it. So, I guess that probably every team in the league would probably get $20-30 million, which is amazing because when I came in the league, I think I was in the league about a year or so when I think it was Dallas and somebody else Minnesota maybe came in the league, and their franchise fee or whatever was I think $16 million or something like that. Each of them had to pay to get in the league. Maybe it's 20, but it's like, now it's going to be hundreds of millions.
It's crazy. I know. And then just the TV deal alone, $176 billion over 11 years, Jerry. Did you ever think?
No, Lord, no. No, that's what's driving the train. I mean, I think that's, if there is such a thing as a danger for the league, it's like with football or any sport, that what you sell at the gate and ticket prices, becomes a small percentage of your revenue.
Yeah.
And so if those TV deals ever would start going the other way, it would be rough. But it's all, it's just been a consistent pattern of going up, and they're using so many different ways of streaming and all that stuff. I was reading James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, was saying he was concerned that was going to affect local broadcast and regional.
Oh, yeah.
Because so much of the product would be put on, to where, the local broadcast won't have really access to all the games they used to have.
And that's been a big point of contention both ways, because some of the local or regional networks have gone out of business. And I know the COVID year, there was a push, because for those that don't know, there's a minimum amount of games that are guaranteed to the regional networks. And if it doesn't hit that number, then the contract doesn't come to. But I guess going back to the money that we see, what do you think the guys like your Magic Johnsons, I know Magic's made his money, but your Larry Birds, your Bill Waltons, your Kevin McHale's, think about when they see what they really helped build this league up to and what these guys are making compared to what they made?
I think most are okay. I mean, they know that obviously they didn't get a benefit anywhere close to their what the players of maybe lesser ability do today. But it was also true before them. You know, the Bill Russells and Jerry West and those guys made just a small percentage compared to Magic and Larry and Jordan and those guys. So, and then, I mean, of course, Michael, obviously he's the best example. I mean, he didn't make, he was making $2 million a year for quite a few years while he was the best player in the world. There's no doubt before he was able to kind of really benefit. And
Yeah.
I always remember Larry Bird talking about that the last year he played when he was really playing hurt with a bad back and knew he had to retire. That was the only year he made more than $3 million. I think he made $7 million
Oh,
that
wow.
year. Yeah, and so, but that was, and those and even that. I mean, that's generational wealth when you really
Sure.
get down to it. I mean, I'm. It's a little hard to wrap your head around the idea of, for anybody, I think, getting players getting 60 or 70 million a year. Uh, I mean, well, I don't know what you do with that, but then again, it's it's based on a kind of a 50-50 deal. I mean, either play, the money's there, and if they didn't get the money, the owners would get more. So
Yeah.
it's probably the NBA's as fair a deal as you can have. I mean, players are their big reasons for the revenue, so they certainly ought to get a share at a high level, and they do.
No doubt. And that Jordan guy you're talking about, I think he came up with some shoes that have done pretty well, Jerry.
Yeah, boy, he's still making a ton, isn't he? I
It's
mean, that was
amazing.
that was one of those things that he was smart, and his mother and agent. I mean, to kind of to get the percentage rather than just taking an amount. I always remember Jeff Petrie told me the story when he was a rookie in Portland. Nike was just getting started. This
Yeah.
was back in the '70s, early '70s, and Phil Knight offered him, I think, it was either $15,000 or a percentage, a 1% or something like that of Nike. And of course, it's like Jeff said, we didn't have any idea that Nike would, whether it
Do
even
what they
be,
did.
or even be might go bankrupt in a year.
Yes.
So it was really a fledgling. So he took the money and he said, yeah, that cost me probably $300 or $400 million that move.
No big deal. No
But
big deal.
I mean, that's the thing. You can't know what you don't know, and there's 1% of a bankrupt company is worth nothing. So
Yes. Yes, this is true. This is true. You got to have the right size of the pie. Jerry Reynolds joining us for a midsummer catch up on our Tuesdays here on the King's Court. Jerry, sports cards have been a big talking point. Did you have a collection? Do you have a collection?
I don't now. I mean, I did as a kid. I just baseball cards, But I'm like a lot of kids and probably people out there. I had a rookie Hank Aaron and
A rookie Hank
oh
Aaron.
yeah, and I mean,
Oh,
and I saved them for I don't know how long. Now they weren't probably. Then typical. I go away to college and my mother, basically tosses them because they're just taking up space.
Yep.
So yeah, my rookie Ernie Banks and Hank Aaron. I didn't really have a rookie Mickey Mantle, but I had a Mickey Mantle. So I had them all for probably from the 54 to in the early '60s, and but anyway, they were tossed, and but that was it. I never really collected basketball cards. I mean, I've got a few of my own, but only.
I was going to say, you got to have a couple of your own.
Well, I have saved a couple just to remind myself, but but then it's amazing. I get them sent to me through the mail to sign all the time, about 2 or 3 a week. It's really remarkable.
Really?
Yeah.
Just fans reaching out?
Pardon?
Fans reaching out, sending them?
Yeah. It's a lot of collectors, and for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, I guess they collect anything, but I've gotten them from France. I've got people. Yeah, I've gotten them from France and Italy. Fans, sending a card to sign, and of course, I'll be happy to do it. I don't know if they I can't imagine it'll ever be of any value but if, I always say if somebody wants me to sign my card, I'll sign it.
There you go. That's good stuff to know. If you got a Jerry Reynolds card, send it his way. Indeed. I'm looking around. Do I have a card here? I'm not sure if you got a chance to catch the Copa America final between Colombia and Argentina, but there was a big issue with security. There was a big issue with the fans. You have been in front of millions and millions of fans during your career. Did you see a change over time in fan interaction with the professionals, with the team members over your time in sports?
I honestly think it's better in basketball. It's better today than it was when I came in the league. I think it's actually improved. I think a lot of its league's done a great job as far as requiring security people travel with the team and those sorts of things. But yeah, obviously fans can get. It's pretty remarkable that in basketball there's not more, fans running on the court or trying to do
Yeah.
something, attacking referees or players as opposed to what we see in soccer too often. Of course, it's a little different. I think the soccer fans just love their team so much, but there's also a level of hooliganism there, I think, as well, where they're not. Sadly, there's some fans that aren't really fans of the game. They're just there to create issues, and so I think basketball, baseball, football of all. There's issues, but when you consider the numbers, you probably have more issues, on the highways at rush hour than you do in an NBA game.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because fans get closer and closer now in basketball. They are almost right on the bench. That would have had to be an adjustment for you, coach, and having a fan sitting right next to you, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we never really had that. We had them obviously front row and they're close, but there wasn't right on the bench, to where
Yes.
you'd almost feel like you'd have to check with the fans, see if you could call timeout or something.
Hey, Jerry, you know this play? Jerry.
Well, I've always said those amounts of money they're paying, it's like, well, maybe they ought to be allowed to call a timeout, and get in the huddle if they want to. But yeah, it's really changed. And it's what it's really affected is things like Gary Gerald and radio. Almost always radio when I came to the league were right on the floor, just like TV was. Now
Yes.
radio is always way up, and it's so hard to. And then more and more TVs, local broadcast. Obviously the national guys get a set on the floor, but the local guys are going up more and more, halfway or something, and that really, I think it affects how you can do the game because I know it did me because you can't you end up watching the game through the monitor. It's for a lot of the time, and that's just not you don't get the feel of the game the same way.
It almost makes you feel like you're not a part of the game. And I would imagine being that close. I know when I sit that close, I feel like I'm part of the game.
Oh, I agree. Well, you see the game differently.
Yes.
I'll say you're kind of in the mud, the blood, and the beer down there.
Yes.
And you can hear the refs and players. And then I think just from a broadcasting standpoint, what I could always feel like I could tell, with matchups, which ones were going to be a problem or which one's an advantage. You could really tell quickness and things advantages so much easier when you're close as opposed to like watching on TV. It's a lot harder or being up in the upper deck. Those are things you can see the plays form better higher up, but you can't really tell the level of athleticism and quickness. And I always liked that because I always thought within a few minutes there's a matchup here, a sub there. And I said, well, yeah, this guy can't guard that guy. And just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not in the cards tonight. It is. If you've never had the opportunity to sit close at a Kings game or even to a degree a college game, although the talent isn't as good, it's a whole different game when you sit that close. A pro game, you have a different appreciation for how big these guys are and how just the moves they make, the no wasted movement. It's incredible.
It really is. The level of athleticism, how the game's improved. There's no doubt it's just such a much better product. Of course, everything has went into that, much like in other sports, where you have the best equipment, the best training facilities, obviously diet, everything is there.
Yes.
So there's, as I always say, it's like you go back years ago, and that's why I don't like to compare eras. But I mean, I love track and field, and if you go back in the middle 30s, and Jesse Owens was by far the dominant sprinter in the world, well, he wouldn't be in the top 200, 300 now. But then again, he ran on a cinder track, and he had really, really just poor equipment, and he was an amateur. He didn't, it's a
Yeah.
whole different world. And
Yes.
and I mean, how much better would he be if he had been raised in this era? Well, of course, he'd been raised a lot different, So, but I mean, the athletes just have every advantage if they want to work and want to get better. They have every opportunity to do that. It's only, with each team, you almost have an assistant coach that will work with individually with each guy. So there's just really, for a guy that isn't good enough, it really is on him.
Great point. And I guess a follow-up to that, more and more athletes are having their own trainers. They're working with their own program as opposed to the team's program. And sometimes there's some conflict there. I'm sure it's a little bit more prominent today than it was when you were coaching. How do you think teams are navigating that space now when you have guys on the payroll that are listening to private trainers rather than the people on their team?
Well, I think it's a problem. I really think that teams, really need to take charge of their own employees.
Sure.
I've always thought that's one thing that to me, it's not a coincidence that Miami and has so much success with, even when they're drafting low or picking up guys, because Pat Riley runs a tight ship. I mean, his trainers and doctors and all that, they're going to be the guys. And everybody's under contract, and you use their people. You don't get to select your own workout guys and trainers and all that stuff. And I just think that's part of, in my mind, if you always talk about building culture, well, that's everybody should be on the same same plane. I mean, and I always remember a story was told to me by a friend that worked for the Heat that used to work for us, and how that when LeBron came, he was used to pretty much having his agents and everybody fly on the team plane, in Cleveland, and he found out pretty quick it didn't work.
Yeah, not
with the
gonna
Heat.
work.
No, they can fly, but they'd be flying on their own.
What she said, it sets the boundaries for a culture, right? Nobody's bigger than the team. Nobody gets any extra benefits or special treatment. And I think that goes a far way. There's been a lot of talk as of late. DeMarcus Cousins had a podcast that he was a part of, talking a lot about his experiences with Paul Westphal and the coaching staff here. And at the end of the day, I don't want to get too much down the rabbit hole with Marcus. It seems like it was an organization issue. The organization had the problem, and they never handled the problem properly.
Well, I don't know if they could have. Having seen really how DeMarcus treated his assistant coaches and coaches at that time, and I know really he was a young man that needed some psychological counseling, and he refused to do it. And so I think I think everything was tried.
Interesting.
And I think that's why it's why it hasn't worked anywhere else either.
Fair.
I mean, he's way too good a player not to be in the league, and it's really it's related to other issues, not talent.
Yeah, he keeps getting the chances, to your point about the talent being there. He's had chances in Golden State. He had another chance with Mike Malone. They didn't want to bring him back. So, yes, there is
the Lakers. I always say when Mike Malone decided not to bring him back and brought what's his name? Gosh, I'm trying to having a brain fart on the backup center forever. The 7-footer.
Dwight Howard?
No, that was there this last couple of years. gosh, from Texas A&M. Anyway, he's been a backup forever,
Yeah.
and not really that talented, but he plays his 8 minutes and probably stays in his lane. Well, anyway, Mike Malone decided he'd rather have him than DeMarcus. Well, that to me that said a lot.
Yeah, that does speak a lot. Good point there. Gammon, thank you very much for the super chat. All right, Jerry, it's going to make us work here. So I'm going to kick this to you. You got
Woo.
10 centers. Jokic, O'Neal, Chamberlain, Russell, Olajuwon, Kareem, Giannis, interesting, not really a center, Vlade, Sabonis Sr., and Sabonis Jr. I don't know if you can rate all 10 in a row, but what are your top 5 out of the pick?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, let me start at the back, and I'd put probably Vlade at the end, as much as I love him, but I'd put him at the end, and probably, of course, Sabonis. Not many people saw Sabonis Sr. in his prime. I did, and so don't know exactly where to put him, but he'd be ahead of his son, and Adetokounmpo would be there now. I think those are kind of the back of it. At the top 10 in order, and boy, there'd be top 10 different opinions here. But sure. I think really at his best, at his very best, at his time, there was nobody like Will Chamberlain. I mean, when you can average 50 points a game and 25 rebounds, you know how many people did that? Exactly one. And he played, he led the league in assists one year, led the league in scoring many years, and rebounding many years, and all that. And he was unguardable. I always remember Bill Russell telling me that. He said, everybody said, we'd beat the Sixers. He said, yeah, we were better. He said, but everybody said I guarded Wilt. I stopped. He said, I didn't stop him. He averaged 38 points a game against me. Like he's made a great point though. He said I was the only center that would play him head up. Everybody else doubled him or tripled, but so anyway, I'd probably just say Chamberlain first. I'd probably put Jabbar second.
Okay.
I might go with, it'd be hard not to take Russell third just on his just marvelous winning career and all that. He might not have been as talented individually as some others, but it's still a team game. Then I'd right now I'd have to go with Jokic, over Olajuwon or Shaq, and they're also different. Olajuwon was such a marvelous scorer, quick, you really couldn't guard him. And then, of course, O'Neal was just like Chamberlain almost. He was a Chamberlain of his time, where he just was so strong and physical, you just couldn't deal with him. Jokic is, kind of he's really a one of one. Probably the first center, kind of a point center, where he runs the offense. Domas is a kind of a Jokic light version.
Exactly.
So they're all so unique in their own way, but Jokic might be the most unique, in that way. And then of course Jabbar, and the fact that he had maybe the most unguardable shot, the sky hook.
The hook, yep.
And I knew that firsthand. I always say, just coached against the Lakers at that time with the Showtime Lakers, and you could do a nice job defensively, and for 20 seconds, and then they just dump it into Jabbar, and he'd shoot the sky hook, and thank you very much. Thanks for, nice hustle, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry, it's one of those shots where it's like he could have shot the ball in a downward trajectory, and he still could have made the shot. But when I look at the list that we're talking about, for the most part there, it goes back to what we started the conversation on. Fundamentals. How many of those guys excelled at the fundamentals of basketball?
Well, in their own way, I'd say, I think they maybe all did to a degree for big people. It's a different game now. Jokic is so unique because his game is so skilled. He's almost like a guard, a big.
Yes.
But that wasn't required then. It was to be really good within a 5 foot range of the basket, and they were, as far as getting position, uh, you know, which is a skill in itself. Able to pin your defender down there and all that. And so, yeah, it's a little. I mean, it's just it was a very different game then, and it's hard to compare. But like say with today's centers, the Embiids and the Jokic's, it's like DeMarcus we were talking about earlier. I mean, he could have been talent-wise among the elite.
Mm-hmm.
He had, but then again, that's, it's kind of like Tyreek Evans could have been several-time All-Star too, if maybe he's taken some different paths. So
Sure. No, it's a solid point. And to Kareem, too, you don't see the sky hook too often. That tells you how hard that shot really is.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody consistently do it. You see big running hooks or the full swing, but not the sky hook where you just basically extend straight up and just a wrist snap. Just unguardable, really.
Pretty special list of players. Sabonis Sr. could kind of shoot the 3-ball undercover pretty darn well. We've talked a lot about Domantas needed to be able to add that wrinkle to his game. What does that open up for the Kings now that DeMar DeRozan's on the roster, if he's able to confidently step into one once in a while?
Yeah, well, he'll need to. I think he's going to need to be able to at least, shoot the corner three. And I think with Sabonis, he really has to take those open looks a little more regular. He certainly shoots enough of a percentage, and so it just makes the game easier, especially in today's game. I don't think you want to just look for threes all the time, but if they're wide open threes, those I always say the threes I don't like are the guy shooting threes off a dribble over a screen or something like that. Those are tougher shots. And I noticed one of the people questioned Jokic over Elijah one. You're killing me, Jerry. Well, it's different. I think with Elijah one, I coached against Elijah one. He was great. He was absolutely great. And but he was a 6-7 foot around the basket guy. He was so quick and mobile. And in fairness, he really was a very poor passer until his probably 5th, 6th year in the league. He was a black hole. They always say, basically they throw it in
down him.
It wasn't coming back. But as he progressed, like great players do, he learned to pass out of the double teams and find guys before. And so, certainly an all-time great. So you can put him wherever you want to. And any of those guys you have on your team, and like I say, probably, Antetokounmpo as a player would rank higher, but I'm not sure he's a real center.
Exactly.
He's really an all-court big player.
Exactly. I think that it's really difficult to put those lists together or make those judgments because of the different eras of basketball. The game has been so much different during those different times those guys played. And so it's just a different thing to do. I would say that, Gavin. So Jerry, the DraftKings Sportsbook released their over-unders. Will end here, and I'll have a quick follow-up on this one. They've got the Kings at 45.5 wins on the season. Are you going over or under?
I'm going over. Over. I think, I'm still hopeful they can get a little more size to help them. But I really think it's going to be a team that's going to be as good offensively, if not as good offensively as anybody, and maybe even the best. I think Mike Brown's a very creative coach, and you got another guy that is capable of getting 25 a night, and DeRozan, and he and Fox and Monk are now. You got 3 guys that can really beat people off the dribble, and in crunch time. I think it's so. I just am very optimistic that if things stay healthy, that this team could be a 50 win team, and could maybe make a push top 5. I don't know that. It'd be hard for me to see them ahead of at least 4 teams there, but
sure.
I'd love to be wrong and they win 60 and all that. But I think they're they're going to be enough improved offensively that I think they should win more games.
Sure. And to your point, their Achilles heel was playing in the half court offensively last year with DeMar DeRozan. That changes everything. I don't think you're going to see the ball swung around the perimeter for 18 seconds like you saw a lot of times last year.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. I mean, I think that's it exactly, because I thought that was really their Achilles heel a lot, the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game. If Fox wasn't having a great game creatively, or Monk, it was really Kings had a tough time.
Yep.
And of course, I think with DeRozan now, it's probably all going to be up to Coach Brown. He really is a more structured player, so you really do need to kind of not just get him the ball, but get him the ball in certain spots that with the live dribble where he can maneuver.
Yes.
And I think it opens up just a lot of possibilities, late game situations, to where so many games in the NBA are close games until the last 4 or 5 minutes, and that's who really can perform against, as a defense gets more physical and all that. And I think DeRozan gives them another great chance of being the best team in the last 5 minutes.
Indeed. And I think we can both agree when the Kings play with a structure to them, we saw last year, it was evident when they were running set plays. I mean, the start of the play-in game against Golden State comes to mind. Keegan plays really well off of that. Domas plays well off of that. Herter plays well off of that. That's the best Kings to me that we've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, I think it's one of those things to where I think we'll see a team this year kind of like that team, except more talented.
Yes.
Just more talented offensively even. So, yeah, I really think it's you can be optimistic, and I am. I mean, I wish, I was just thinking too that, the draft, and taking Carter, who's hurt, and that's a tough blow.
It is.
The guy I kind of wanted to take, Deron Holmes.
Achilles, Jerry.
And got an Achilles injury in his first summer league game. So, that's, I mean, I think realistically, you don't, with a really good team, you're not expecting rookies to make an impact, particularly anyway. So.
Yeah, I think Denver, though, was expecting him to maybe play that backup role.
Yeah, they needed him to. Yeah, You're right. I mean, that's the thing, Denver, why the Kings, may have a chance there. I mean, that's a pretty thin team. They lost Caldwell Pope. That's a key guy there. And they didn't have the bench last year that they'd had before. So
great point.
That they could be a little vulnerable. I hope. I mean, from the Kings' perspective, their starting 5 will still be good, but I think they're going to miss Pope. I don't know if they've replaced him. That's for sure.
Yeah, you don't know where that explosiveness is going to come from off the bench. Sometimes he was their Monk, but hey, Jerry, thank you so much as always for joining us. Thank Mrs. Reynolds for giving us an hour of your time as well, and I guess go walk off the extra carbs from yesterday.
Well, try to. And to the gentleman talking about Shaq's the second best center, I wouldn't argue that he's not. I just can't do it. He's a Laker. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I mean, now Shaq was. I mean, Jabbar was too, but that's Shaq's the one that beat us and kept me from.
Yes.
So anyway,
from getting your ring.
I'm biased. I'll admit that, but Shaq was great. There's no doubt. He's unguardable, and he was kind of the Wilt Chamberlain of his time. So anyway, you rank them how you want. And that's all you can do.
That had to be a little weird when Shaq became a part of the ownership group.
Yeah, it was. Although he's such a good guy, and I'd always heard that, and I've gotten to know him a little bit, and he is just an absolute, kind of like you see him in commercials, just a really nice, likable guy for a major superstar, as opposed to, quite honestly, I know Jabbar, and during his playing career was that's always kind of a prick, he didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't really, even with his teammates,
different dude.
He's mellowed. I think, to his credit, he's mellowed a lot, which old age does that sometimes. It goes both ways.
Sure.
but anyway, yeah, that was a great question. I mean, it'd be like picking the 10 best players all time or the 10 best point. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Exactly right. Well, Jerry, thank you again. Can't wait to see you again next Tuesday, and stay cool until then.
Well, I'll start preparing for next Tuesday here in
Yes.
just about an hour.
Okay,
So, yeah.
perfect. Make sure you
Okay.
get your carbs in you the night before, like you did yesterday. We'll be good to go, buddy.
Sounds good.
All
See you,
right,
Ryan.
Jerry. See you soon. That is the one and only Jerry Reynolds joining us here on Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. Fun conversation there. Questions. What did you think? Reactions. React to me. Some good questions there. The rankings are always so difficult to navigate because a lot of it is subjective. It becomes. Look, if you're somebody in our generation, you're not going to think of half of the people on that list because maybe you didn't see them play. Maybe they're people you've only heard about. You've only seen highlights on YouTube. Somebody like Jerry, he's seen it all for the most part. So, really interesting stuff indeed. Good job by all of you. I guess chicken. I can't believe I called chicken and dumplings chicken and biscuits. What am I doing here? Misspeaking? My goodness. By the way, speaking of great food, don't forget about our friends at Bennett's West Side Grill in Rockland. The West Side Grill is their new location in the Blue Oaks Town Center. It is Tuesday, which means they've got their happy hour specials going on from 2 to 6 o'clock. Their sips and taste. Get down there. They've got a lot of different options on there. The short rib tacos, the wedge salad, the mini sliders, always super good. And don't forget about the great menu they have at dinner all the time. Some of our favorites, the redfish, the hanger steak and frits, all the good stuff there. And also make sure you check out their specials on bennettsrestaurants.com. They run them each and every week. Can't miss the prime rib weekend and the weekend brunch. So huge thanks to Brian and the team at Bennett's West Side Grill in Rockland and all of their other locations. Staff and management. Shout out to Margot managing the Sacramento location. Got to meet her last week. Yeah, I took the Guru, paid off my debt to the Guru. Can you believe it? Paid off my debt about Malik Monk. Patrick, what's up, man? Welcome to the party. Edie, wow. He's got a long way to go. Did I miss something? Said you went to the Bronx Zoo. Missed yesterday. I said the Bronx Zoo. Very cool. What's their signature animal there, Patrick? I'm sure they've got one animal that nobody else has. Let's see. It's okay to be biased against LA. It was quite the rivalry. You know, it's funny because I've spent a ton of time with Jerry, both on shows and off of shows. I consider him a really good friend. Obviously, Grant, spent a ton of time with him, and there's a different tone when I've asked them. It was something I never asked off the record. In fact, I've asked them live on shows, whether it was here on If You Don't Like That or before on Listen App, whatever it may be. But, what would have it meant to you to get that ring in 2001, 2002? What would that have been like? And the tone changed. Everything is really the answer. I mean, though that was the year, they feel like that was taken from them. And it's not a blame the referees. It's look, the Kings had the table set. You had a game 7 at home. Yes. Did you get some bad breaks? Certainly. But you had the champs on the ropes. So, yes, it is personal. Think about somebody like Jerry. In fact, I think we asked him biggest regret maybe like 6 weeks ago, and he had an answer to it. But somebody that spent their life in basketball, I mean, your entire life through the college years, through assistant coach, student coaches in college, through head coaching, getting to the NBA, being a head coach in the league, being a GM in the league. And I know Jerry won a championship with the Monarchs. He was the GM there and he did a great job. That's special. but the NBA championship is something different. It just is. And we got into it last night with Grant about Mike Bibby. You know, a lot of people think Mike's number should be retired. I'm kind of in the middle. I see both sides of the argument. And I'll be honest, I know Mike. Mike is, I worked his camps through my college years. I worked out with Mike during that same time with Al Biacani. And, you know, I think he's great. He did a lot for Sacramento, model citizen for the most part. But yeah, if you put Mike in the Raptors, it's a slippery slope. Then you start, okay, well, then we got to put this person and that person. And at the end of the day, that team did not win anything. They didn't. They won the Pacific Division. They won the Pacific Division this year. So it's an interesting argument. I see both sides of it. Where do you come out on it? Gio, what's up, man? Thanks for hopping in the chat. Missed the old Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds broadcasts on channel 31. Yes. Do you guys remember channel 31? That's where you used to catch. Gio, they didn't have every Kings game on 31, but they would have a couple a week. I remember always the Chicago game would be on 31, but those were some good times. I was going to I got my notes here. I was going to ask Jerry about those 90s teams, but we started to go a different way in the conversation. You just let the conversation go. But the 90s teams were Richmond, you know, all the guys, the Tisdale, Coswell, I could go on for days. But those teams, they weren't great, but they were still appealing. What was it besides the hustle? Even though those teams really didn't win anything, why do we look back and have such favorable memories of a lot of those times? But they absolutely did a great job on the broadcast. Then we actually this last year auctioned off some Jerry Reynolds show t-shirts from channel 31. Grant had those. One of them autographed by Larry Bird and Jerry Reynolds. For those that don't know, Jerry and Larry grew up in the same small town, French Lick, Indiana. Adam hopping in. Loved Bibby, but we ain't retiring his number. Yeah. Would you say Mike Bibby has the biggest shot in Kings history? Put that out there. Game 5, is that the biggest shot in Kings history to go up 3-2 on the champs? That might be the biggest shot in Kings history. You got Marv Albert on the call. In fact, you know what? Why don't we can get that fired up here? But yes, that was probably the height of the Kings franchise. The height. That is the all-time high of the Sacramento Kings franchise. Mike Bibby hitting that shot. I remember it like it was yesterday. Weber, the screen, Bibby, good. Here we go.
Game number 5 coming down to the final seconds, as did game number 4. But the Lakers have a 1-point lead. To Bibby, has the open shot. Yeah!
Anybody at that game? Curious. Anybody at Arco? Game 5 when that shot went down. I remember where I was not at the game, but I remember exactly where I was at when that shot went down and the Kings took that lead. Holy crap. And do you guys remember how much freaking Carl's Jr. all of us were pounding for those bobbleheads? Raise your hand if you had the full set of bobbleheads. There's 3 of them right back there of the originals. Oh, you couldn't hear it, C-Dog? You couldn't hear the Bibby clip? No way. All right, we'll fire that up again in a second. We're too caught up in our almost championship at the end of the day. We have as many rings as number 83, Chris Paul. Yes, he is number 83, according to the people surveyed. Vlade shouldn't be retired, in my opinion. Peja is fine, though. Peja is an NBA champion, certainly. CT Dog, 2002 Kings versus Lakers is still the greatest 7-game series, one of the best this century, no doubt. I don't disagree with that. I mean, it had everything, right? It had the two-time defending champion Los Angeles Lakers that were the big payroll, the two biggest stars arguably in the league. And then you've got Sacramento, this little town in the middle of California, even though we're the capital. And guys that came here that didn't necessarily want to come here, but then you have this rabid fan base. And Adam, yes, I saw your question. I was going to try to squeeze it in, and I didn't get to it. El Campeon or Gunther, Gunther for me. But yes, it had all of the makings, and then you get to everything that came on the back end of it. That was a tough thing to swallow for a lot of Kings fans. And quite frankly, I don't think it's anything this city is ever going to get over, right? Like, if this city wins a championship eventually, an NBA championship, I think it's going to be what we should have too. And yes, this city will definitely relish the championship, but I just feel like it's one of those things that it is on our shoulder, just walking around with us. Let's see, Derek Carl's Jr. so good back in the day. Well, you know why we ate so much Carl's Jr.? For those that used to go to games back in the 90s and I guess maybe it was early 2000s too, when the Kings won and scored over, I think it was 100 points, you could turn your ticket in, your ticket stub, and you got buy one, get one free Western bacon cheeseburgers. And I'm not a big fan of that place, but that's a damn good fast food burger. I'm not going to lie. And I slammed a ton of those because we went to a ton of Kings games. It's like, you got to go get your free Western bacon cheeseburger. Vlade gets his number retired after the Bagley draft and saying he could play 2 to 5. Shake my head. Yes. I you know what? Vlade's taken some. There's no doubt about that. But he was the biggest free agent signing in the history of this team. And he's probably, I would say, the glue that held that team together, that kept that team light. He did a lot of what Malik Monk does for this current team. Gio, question about DeMar DeRozan. I lost that soundbite. Here's what I think. I think it makes the Kings a threat offensively at all three levels in the half court, something they weren't last year. You had one player that was a threat from both positions, both behind the three-point line and at the hoop. That's De'Aaron Fox. Outside of him, it was really tough. I guess you could put Malik Monk in that category as well as a creator. Not quite as good as De'Aaron Fox, but they didn't have the mid-range threat. And with DeMar DeRozan, it's a perfect mix. And don't get me wrong, he's going to be 35 once the season starts. He's got some tread on the tires, but he's a guy that has a proven record of being able to take care of his body, much like a Harrison Barnes, and has played a lot of minutes. In fact, last year he played an NBA high 37.8 minutes. He's played 82 games twice in his career. But getting back to what he does, he's that extra creator that the Kings need in the half court. The silver bullet for the Kings is transition. The Kings are so hard to guard in transition when they are running right and the defense is flowing. But when you get them cornered in the half court, or at least you did last year, it became a problem. Jerry and I just talked about that. So having DeMar in the mid-range, it really helps your guys like your Kevin Huerters. It really helps your Keegan Murrays. Now, the next evolution to this team is what we talked about a second ago with Jerry, is Domas. Not necessarily having to knock down a ton of threes, but needing to be able to hit the three and step into it confidently, being able to hit a mid-range shot and being able to step into it confidently, make or miss, because that forces the defense to guard you. Last year, they just had to either push you out a little bit further past the three-point line or drive you baseline and not let you get to the middle. And the Kings had really hard time scoring. So adding DeMar DeRozan, it helps all of that. Hopefully he will be able to stay on the court. They gave away free burgers. I didn't know that when they scored over. Okay, so it was a free burger. You didn't have to buy one, get one. Oh, man, a superstar with Chris Cuts. Yeah, but Adam, you've got like Hardee's back there in Dallas, right? Because Hardee's is the same as Carl's Jr. I mean, I think we're probably all on the same page here. Probably the best fast food burger, In-N-Out, would you say? I get it. I can see it coming in the chat. In-N-Out is not a fast food restaurant, Rhino. I get it, but I think that's probably the best fast food burger going right now. Speaking of bests and lists, we were talking about the ESPN rankings that came out. We've gone over 1 through 76. Here's the newest round of them. We'll go over them really quick. We'll go over the highlights of them. Getting back to it. So you've got at 74. Check this out. What? No way. Are you serious? I don't believe that. Hardee's doesn't have the Western? What? Yeah, and Burger King doesn't have the Whopper. Get out of here. Let's see. Lisa Leslie, number 74. Very influential for basketball. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts, number 73. How about this one? 72. Shaun White. Shaun White, skateboarder, snowboarder. Interesting. We break up the monotony of lists with Adam. Still Carl's Jr. here, but they are sparse. Only one I have is 40 minutes away, attached to a crappy Flying J. Dude, the only thing more questionable than fast food restaurants attached to gas stations is the fast food restaurants that are like half Carl's, or not half Carl's Jr., but like half Pizza Hut, half KFC. That's the only thing more questionable. Really be careful there if you're going half and half. Dude, CT Dog, Five Guys is a waste of money. It's so expensive. And their stuff's pretty messy, but I don't remember it being too bad. I don't know if I want to pay that price. Fried zucchini from Carl's is slept on. Interesting. Of course, it has to be fried. Mookie Blaylock should be ahead of Mookie Betts. Not a terrible take. Betts, but no Judge. Great argument. Is Judge going to be higher? Is that exactly? So let's get back to it. We'll get back to your comment in a second. You got Shaun White at 72, 71. Manny Pacquiao. Anybody have Pacquiao on your bingo card? Got a soccer player, Andres Iniesta. Sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly. 69. Jason Kidd, 69. 68. From the world of golf, Phil Mickelson. Speaking of golf, what's going on with the PGA Live merger? Do you remember how that shook the golf world for like a week? What have we heard since? Really would be interested to get an update there. Ahead of Phil Mickelson, number 67, James Harden? What? Key accomplishments. NBA 75th anniversary team, 2017-2018 MVP, 10-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA selection, and 2011-2012 sixth man of the year. James Harden. 66. Now, this is going to be debatable, highly debatable. John Jones. John Jones. Is John Jones at 66 for his potential and what he could have been, or for what he's actually done? Very interesting there. I'm not trying to take away his MMA accomplishments in UFC, but he has definitely had some issues. Mbappe, number 65. Mbappe, number 64. Mia Hamm. Mia Hamm. Mia Hamm, anyone? 63. Allison Felix. You remember her? Track and field. I remember Allison Felix. I used to think Allison Felix was actually pretty cute. Not going to lie about that. But still, 63. You know who's right behind her? C-Dog, you ready for it? Shohei Ohtani. You would think that Ohtani would be way higher on this list. Way higher on this list, considering he's a different guy. He pitches and he hits. He's the $700 million man in baseball. He is only at number 62. Number 61, Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis at 61. 60, Candace Parker. Candace Parker. 59 and ahead of Derek Jeter. Or no, I guess not ahead of Derek Jeter, but 59, Mariano Rivera. Interesting. JJ Watt at 58. 57, Calvin Johnson. Detroit Lions, retired early. 56, Lexia Putellas, soccer. 65, another soccer player, Luka Modric. And then Alex Ovechkin, 54. Then Derek Jeter, 53. Derek Jeter, 53. Do you have Adrian Beltre ahead of Derek Jeter? They do. Number 52. 51, Steve Nash. And that is it for now. Holy crap. What do you think? Any surprises there? This list is highly questionable. I'm wondering who the hell wrote this thing and who voted. Harden 30 spots above McDavid. Gotta love it. I agree with you, C-Dog. Completely agree with you, my man. Where does Ichiro land? It's a good question. He'll probably be... Well, Ichiro's years. What years was he? Because remember, it's 2000 on. Ichiro's probably going to be top 25, would be my guess. CT Dog. Judge is playing like Mickey Mantle. Judge is such a perfect Yankee. He is such a good Yankee. He really is. I'm not going to lie. Let's see. Pacquiao. Top 5 boxer of all time. If he fought Spence and won at 42 years old, Pacquiao would be number 1. Interesting take, especially with boxing where it's at now. Pacquiao was in that last group of, I don't know, like the boxing relevancy before it became more of a, do you want to call it? It's sport, but there's as much entertainment involved in the sport. And I guess part of that is because of Jake Paul and some of these fights you've seen. Like you just had, who was it? It was Jorge and Nate Diaz do a boxing match, whatever. Now he's suing for $9 million that Maskball, that's who it was. Suing for $9 million. $9 million. Breaking, Lindsey Harding joining the Lakers as an assistant. Very interesting move by the Lakers. CD Dog or Condog, who is that through? Let me know. If those that don't know, Lindsey Harding was the coach of your Stockton Kings. She was the G League Coach of the Year this last year. The Kings made it to the Western Conference Finals, ultimately lost there. Interesting move. I did not see that coming. Lindsey Harding, she knows her X's and O's. She's a great coach, but she definitely commands a certain respect. She runs her programs a certain way. So I want to see what this transition is going to look like when it comes to her becoming an assistant with the Lakers. Is big? You know, they are really, I'm trying to process this in the moment. They're really trying to make a splash with the PR this year. Really trying to make a splash and put a lot of attention on that bench. First with JJ Redick. Now you bring in Lindsey Harding, who is well deserving, by the way, but the attention's going to be on the fact that she is a female. Not that she is a very good basketball coach. The attention is going to be the Lakers are hiring a female assistant. So just another big thing for LA land, looking to make it relevant. Maybe, hey, no joke here, by the way, this is no BS. I've talked for the last 8 months about the development going on in Stockton in correspondence with Sacramento, obviously under one roof, but the player development has been off the charts. In fact, I would say the Kings program for player development between G League and the NBA and the scouting, probably top 5 in the NBA. It's a reason that Lindsey Harding was the G League coach of the year. There's a reason that Keon Ellis did what he did last year. There's a reason some of these guys, like your Kessler Edwards, would fall out of the rotation or never really be in the rotation, but then get called on and then come out and play well, be prepared for that moment. And a lot of that had to do with what the hell was going on in Stockton. So if you're looking at a coach that can really contribute towards player development, Bronny James, Lindsey Harding is a great pick for that if she's going to be part of that. And especially if she will also be part of the collaborations between LA's South Bay Lakers and the Los Angeles Lakers. Oh my gosh. Why we got wrestling going now? What's going on? I remember, Gio, the 99-cent Whopper was one of the reasons we started asking to walk to school in middle school, because we passed by a Burger King and it was right next to a donut shop. No joke. Like 8 a.m, you're getting a donut. You were getting a 99-cent Whopper. I absolutely remember those. The fast food wars are now going back to the value menus. So stay tuned. First, they wanted to charge you a mortgage to get a 2 cheeseburger meal, and now they're going back cheap. So stay tuned to what fast food does, which is not good for you. It's terrible for you. Undefeated John Jones at 66 is a trash take. Where do you got him then, Adam? Let me know. John Jones should be on the list, but I see where you are coming from. Yeah, we'll see. John who? Patrick throwing a little shade. I love it. No pun intended. We already got to the Pacquiao comment. Best pitcher of all time at 59. But remember, it's only what he did from 2000 on. That's the thing here. Adam. Oh, Adam. Adam has an Adam bomb. Rey Mysterio at 49. You're kidding, right? They haven't even released 49. Goldberg? Stop it. Here we go. Okay, you guys want to do this? Top 10 wrestlers since 2000? I don't know that Goldberg's on that list. And arguably Rey Mysterio might not be on that list either. Just saying. Derek Jeter, yes. Derek should be higher. I agree. This Lindsey Harding news has me thrown a little bit. I'm going to have to reach out to some of my Stockton sources to see when this materialized and when they got any hint of her leaving. Again, that's a huge piece for your Stockton Kings in the player development. I know the player development goes beyond her. It's also her staff. It's Gabriel Harris in the front office. But wow, very interesting that the Lakers have taken Lindsey Harding and the timing of that. Let's see. The BMF belt match between those two was a travesty. Yes, it was pretty bad. I heard. I heard it was really bad. It's funny how they just want to box, right? They don't want to do the MMA. They don't want to kickbox. They just want to box. It's basically a glorified sparring session, is really what it comes down to. Maybe she could be their head coach when JJ gets canned at the All-Star break. JJ ain't going nowhere, brother. They have already tied that ship to JJ. When you hire JJ Redick, you are saying that JJ Redick and LeBron James is more important than Anthony Davis to the franchise. That's what you're saying. So JJ will be nowhere as long as LeBron James is still with that team. And seriously, though, if you're Anthony Davis, what are you thinking right now? Like, are you happy with the direction of the team? He needed something. Remember, LeBron's tried to make this public argument that he's given the keys to Anthony Davis. He is not given the keys to Anthony Davis. As long as LeBron James is suiting up for that team, it is LeBron's team. He's making the decisions. He's pulling the strings. If I'm Anthony Davis, I want a fresh freaking start somewhere. Anthony Davis would be damn good here in Sacramento if he could stay on the court. Not going to lie about that. Combat sports are more and more a niche community. You either know everything or you don't have a clue. You know why that's more true than ever, Alberto? UFC used to run one show, one pay-per-view, like every 4 to 6 weeks, I want to say. And then you would have an Ultimate Fighter. That came later in like 2000, what was it? 2004 was the Bonner fight, Bonner and Forrest Griffin on the Ultimate Fighter. I think that was season 1. And you had that lead up to a pay-per-view. In fact, one of my friends, Sean Smith, Hands of Steel, Sean Smith, he was a prominent UFC fighter at one time. But getting back, or Scott Smith, excuse me. I said Sean Smith. Sean's his brother. Anyways, getting back to what I was saying, you would only have one pay-per-view every 6 weeks when you had your Coutures, your Icemen, your Tito Ortizes. So the mainstream could really follow. Honestly, could follow. And UFC then, that was still kind of one of those closet sports where some people looked at you a little weird. If you were going to the bar to watch UFC, it's like, oh, you're into that cage fighting. Like, why don't you just watch two dogs fight? You know, that was the kind of thought process for those that didn't get it. But it started to draw people in and you could follow it easily. Now it's impossible to follow, Alberto. It seems like there's a UFC plus fight every single week. I watched the fight this last weekend between the female fighters that main evented it. And I didn't know a ton of people on the card. Some of them are ranked 6th in their divisions, 4th in their divisions. So, I would say combat sports is getting more niche and niche. Power slap. Now, that is something intriguing. No, I am not into it, but I have seen it. I've seen the viral spots where that guy's face doubles in size on the right side, probably lost all use of that side of his face after that match. But power slap to me actually seems more gimmicky than pro wrestling. You're going to tell me that these dudes are like getting knocked out by the slap to where they have people behind them catching them, and that's okay to go back up and get your head slapped again if you're really falling because you're knocked out? No, it's not. It seems to me like it's gimmicky. I'm surprised that you can take bets on power slapping, but hey, to each their own. If you like power slapping, enjoy it. Haunted Horse always taken up for the Gym Boys tacos. Always, always, always. Who do you think will be at the top? Phelps? He's one of them. You got to think probably LeBron James. Don't you think? It's got to be LeBron. He came in the league in 2002. So then you get the 2 years of his high school, or you get 1 year of high school, basically. I think LeBron will be the trendy pick at the top of the list. I do, because not only did he live up to the astronomical expectations in the NBA, but think about how high school basketball is consumed now. when I played high school basketball, we were on access television with the same commentators that did one game a week. Then LeBron comes around, and now almost every week during the basketball season, you have high school basketball being nationally televised. So I think there's a big argument for LeBron being there. JJ is going to, well, we already went over that. JJ is not getting fired. Alberto, it seemed like the Stockton Kings were finally establishing a good culture. We'll see how that impacts things. Yeah, it's a good point. I don't think that any one person is responsible for the culture that they've been establishing. I think it's been collaborative. Like I said, Lindsay, a very good coach. She runs a program a certain way. She really does. So I'm not saying she's replaceable, but a lot of the other elements that have gone into what Stockton is now are still in place without Lindsay Harding, but it certainly is a hit to the program. There's no doubt about that. Alberto, they are blocking out fans with all pay-per-views. Every fight, whether it's UFC or boxing pay-per-view, fans cannot afford to watch. Well, that's the thing. There's too many of them, Alberto. If you're going to go to that model, you've got to go to like a WWE network kind of model. You can't ask people to pay $70 every 2 weeks for a pay-per-view. It's not happening. And you're right. They are blocking people out. We're still arguing about Sabonis and where they're at on the 10 centers. Let's see. They need to set up storylines in Power Slap. Like one girl stealing. Okay, here we go. Yes, I saw Paige Van Zant do that. Was that a one-time thing? Or was that something that is here to stay? Is she now officially a power slapper? I don't disagree that it's savagery. I heard that they're only getting paid $2,500 and won't even cover the medical bills. You're fighting for free then. In fact, it's probably at a deficit. I mean, somebody Google that. What does the top power slap athlete make? What does the champion of the world in power slap make? I would be interested to know that number. Let's see. I will be number 1 on the list, and Bronny will be number 2 because he's crap. Okay. Haunted Horse, you're saying Bronny is going to be the second athlete on the top 100 list. All right, we'll see. Big news about Lindsay Harding. I can't wait to talk to my people in Stockton to find out some more. I had got no whiff of that. Absolutely no signs that that was coming. Usually I would. So very interesting news. Again, a lot happens during Summer League. Here's the other thing, too, that could be at play at this. You know, I'm sure there was part of Lindsay that probably wanted to have her name in the hat to coach the Summer League team for the Kings. Not the Stockton Kings, the Sacramento Kings. That usually goes to somebody that is on the Kings coaching staff, obviously Sacramento speaking. Doug Christie getting the nod this summer. I'm sure Lindsay is probably there. I'm going to check into it, and we'll talk more about it later tonight at 8 o'clock with Grant. But a decent loss for your Stockton Kings and the Kings program overall. And congratulations to her. Moving on to an NBA bench with the rival Los Angeles Lakers. Go figure. The Lakers poaching the Kings talent once again. It has been an extremely fun day. Jerry Reynolds Tuesday, as always, a lot of fun. Don't forget, make sure you are subscribed to If You Don't Like That. If you haven't already, you can find all of our shows, whether that's the Kings Court Live, If You Don't Like That, Open Forums with Grant, special interviews, Scott Pollard, Ian Eagle, Sean Salisbury during the football season. There is a ton, more than you could probably watch in a lifetime up there on If You Don't Like That. And we've got new programming coming out every single day. Hey, and also, you know, we are like 4 followers away from 1,000 on the King's Court, do me a favor. If you haven't already, scan that QR code. Give us a follow on X. It will let you know how to listen to the King's Court. I have not the last couple weeks done the shoot-arounds. The shoot-arounds are coming back, but you get a live show Monday through Friday here on If You Don't Like That. Shoot-arounds will be back soon. Give me a follow on the X. Follow the King's Court there. When we get to 1,000, I'm going to be making a big announcement. And so you definitely want to help me out. We are 4 away. 4 away. Help us out indeed. And again, later tonight, Grant night, 8 o'clock, we will be back here on If You Don't Like That, doing an open forum show. Thank you guys all so much. A lot, and I mean a lot of fun with Jerry Reynolds. We had some pretty darn good questions from all of you, except Adam. He still threw his wrestling question. That's all right, dude. You're staying true to brand. I tried to squeeze it in for you. I really tried. You know that. Again, breaking news. Condog reported by Woj. Lindsey Harding, the coach. We're really going to go there? We're really going to go there? What? You want me to give the bobblehead away to whoever is the 1,000th subscriber? I'll consider it. I'm just kidding. I maybe we'll get another bobblehead made for the person that's the 1,000th subscriber. But no, we do have some cool things coming up, including something all of you have been asking for. And once we hit 1,000 followers, I will make the formal announcement, but we also have a giveaway. Don't forget, we still have to give away the Malik Monk signed jersey. So we are going to do a lot around that. So make sure that you are here and get involved with the show, whether it be X, whether it be YouTube. You can find us here Monday through Friday, and then the audio on Apple and Spotify. Appreciate it, y'all. Really appreciate it. C-Dog, thanks for backing me up here. $45K top pay for Power Slap. Not worth it. No, thank you. I would imagine your dental bills would be over $45,000 by the time it is all set and done. Let's see. James, look, you guys are hitting me with the last second questions. I'm happy to take them, though. When's the last time the Kings had a superstar player? Interesting. Superstar? Never. Kings have never had a superstar. At least in the Sacramento era, they've never had a superstar. We're talking superstar. If you're talking superstar, it's LeBron James. It's Kobe Bryant. It's Shaquille O'Neal. It's Giannis. It's Jokic. Those are transcendent superstars. Kings have never had one. I think De'Aaron, close, not nearly there yet. And even a guy like SGA, he's not there yet, but he's close too. But a superstar that transcends basketball, that is recognizable anywhere, no, I don't think the Kings have had one, unfortunately. In fact, Grant and I talked about that. Some of you made an argument that it was actually, let's see, who was it? Somebody said Boogie. We talked about that. Mitch Richmond, no, not really. Yeah, they've never had a superstar. Be nice. It's going to have to be homegrown. That's the thing. The Kings are going to have to continue drafting well. And by the way, I would say Tyrese Halliburton, Olympic team. Now, granted, Mitch was on an Olympic team. That's a good question. Tyrese, too early in his journey. Mitch, Weber, close. See, that's the thing. There's a ton of guys that are close, but there's not that one guy that's just that over-the-top talent. Yeah, Dwayne Coswell. Maybe Mitch, but if Mitch did what he did, with the All-Star MVP, multiple-time All-Star, Olympian, if he had a championship or a couple championships, he's there. He is there. There's no doubt about it. But I think you're right, Condog. Derek's saying the same thing. Now, Mitch was not a superstar, but I think Mitch is the closest thing. Mitch was I would say, for those that remember, Mitch was a household name in the NBA. Remember, he was the Rock, right? Like, it wasn't just Sacramento that knew Mitch as the Rock. He was the Rock to the NBA. Now let's even take it back a step further. Mitch had a signature shoe in a time that a lot of guys did not have signature shoes. This was like Jordan had his stuff going, right? But in the early day, what happened was only a select few NBA players had their own shoes made for them. They'd wear other players' signature shoes, like a ton of guys wore Jordan. So you had like Scottie Pippen that would wear Jordan. Maybe they'd be PEs where they're specially made for them. But Mitch Richmond had a shoe before Scottie Pippen had a shoe, because Mitch had the Air Bacons. Do you guys remember the Air Bacons? Let me pull these up really quick. The Air Bacons, I will never forget begging, like literally begging my parents to buy me this pair of shoes. And they were the ugliest pair of shoes that I had ever seen. Literally, they look like a sizzling piece of bacon. Let me see if I can get that picture pulled up. Here we go. Let's share this side. Here we go. Check these out. Got to take this comment down. These are the Air Bacons. Look at those things, man. Those were Mitch's signature shoe. And I know he was wearing the up-tempos for a while. One of the first basketball shoes that had a complete air bubble all the way around them. But the Air Bacons, Mitch had those. And yes, I got them. They were uncomfortable and narrow as hell, but it didn't matter because it was Mitch Richmond's signature shoe. And after Mitch got his shoe, by the way, then you had Gary Payton getting the gloves. You guys remember the gloves that zip up? And then you had Scottie Pippen getting his. In fact, Scottie Pippens were actually a version of the up-tempos that we're talking about. And then so on and so forth. You saw more players start to get your shoes. So going back to Mitch Richmond, he was the closest thing to a superstar, I think. And his camps here in town were massive, had him at Arco Arena. I got to go to some of those, but yeah, I think it was probably Mitch, the closest. Not there, but definitely close. Yes, those were ugly. At the time, those were $100. They were either 80 or $100 when you had Jordans going for 160. The Air Up-Tempos, when they came out, and I'm talking about here. Let's pull these up let's pull these up so you understand what I'm talking about, because these were ridiculous when Mitch wore these. Here we go. I begged my grandpa to get me these shoes. Oh, they're not going to show the right one. No, give me the right one. Okay, they're not going to show me. They're showing me the classic ones with the Air. But Mitch had a custom pair of Air Up-Tempos. Progressive. Chris Webber was not a transcendent superstar. He wasn't. He was a star. He wasn't a superstar. Chris Webber was really good. He was a star. He's in the same category as some of the other Sacramento greats, but he was not a superstar. By any means. He was not clutch. He didn't do anything in the playoffs. Except, obviously that knee injury against Dallas. It was ugly. But Mitch Richmond, yeah, I think Mitch was the closest thing. Yes, the Scottie Pippen Air Up-Tempos. You know what I'm talking about, Adam. Those are not them, though. That is not the shoe that I'm looking for. I'll show you a picture of the shoe that I'm looking for tomorrow. Anyways, we were supposed to wrap up. And here we are going a little bit longer. That's all right. Make sure you come back tonight at 8 o'clock. It will be a lot of fun. Grant will have way more content than last night for you. But definitely some interesting talking points last night. When Grant talks about his stories, absolutely love the stories. So I know that some of you enjoy those. It blows my mind that Grant grew up around New York sports, and not just like around New York sports, but in New York sports. Madison Square Garden, for instance, going to the Bronx and Yankee Field. Incredible stuff. Yankee Stadium. I shouldn't say Yankee Field. But anyways, all right, we're going to be back at 8 o'clock. Grab a sip of water, something to eat, go to Bennett's, come back and join us again. Huge thank you to Jerry Reynolds for joining us on Tuesdays like he always does. Fun conversation. Gammon, thank you for the super chat, my friend. And thank you to all of you in the chat and watching. You make the show better. The show is all about you. So thank you very much. Again, 8 o'clock. Be back here with Grant and I taking your questions, open forum, also phone calls. We will have a lot of fun. Hell, maybe you can start asking Napes about kicks. That'd be kind of funny. Hey, Napes, what's your take on the Air Bacons? Napes, did you ever pair the gloves? You know the gloves? I wonder, Napes probably would have a hot take about shoes these days and the prices of shoes and some of the shoes these guys wear. It's an incredible market, a market that is not going anywhere anytime soon. We'll hit it at 8 o'clock tonight. Go Kings. Again, breaking news, by the way, Lindsey Harding, was head coach of your Stockton Kings. She is headed to the Los Angeles Lakers per Woj as an assistant coach for JJ Redick and his staff. Will talk more about what that means to player development and Stockton at 8 o'clock.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Yes, indeed. Go Kings. Light the damn beam. Stay away from Levine. As my boy BJ says, court is dismissed.